Welcome to Books, Booze, and Murder. I'm Anna.
I'm Alexa.
We're two besties who love to read and, like many, have a fascination with true crime. We have officially reached episode 6.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 6 months.
We've been doing this for half a year.
Look at that consistency. So, warning to listeners, we might be a little bit more unhinged today. It's been a day.
Unhinged! It's been a week, man.
Yeah.
Not to mention a day.
Yeah. It's been nuts. But either way, I just wanted to celebrate that milestone. Like,
it's fun.
Yeah. It's been crazy. We've learned a lot, for sure.
Oh, yeah. A lot of learning curves going on here.
Oh my gosh. First with using a microphone setup where I thought it would work all right. And then it's like, no, not really.
Feedback.
Yeah. So that was the first 2 episodes. And I think we've been getting a little bit better. So.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. But, how are you?
You know, I battled through today and we were good. For, like, obviously, you know, we did a very big trip to Costco today. And it's a lot of people. And I don't do well around people.
Yeah.
I'm very, very not people-y.
Yeah, we're reaching our max. And to get to Costco with where we are, it's a trip.
Yes.
But it was worth it in the end, so that part's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so if you have not been listening to our campfire chats, we officially have a TikTok account, and it's Books, Booze, Murder Pod, and that's how you can find us. And I might have made Alexa do a TikTok right before we started recording.
That took me 4 fucking tries. I'm not a happy camper right now. That was stupid that it took me that long to figure it out. And I didn't do anything. I held up books in front of my face, but it still took me 4 tries for whatever reason. That was stupid.
Well, I had to do mine a few times as well because one of the times, like, I was doing it at the top of my stairs because I was like, okay, that's a nice backdrop. It's books.
Mm-hmm.
My female dog walked in on me doing it, and I was like, well, you're right in my shot, and we're just going to make this work.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So, we'll get there. But in the meantime, do you want to introduce our book and our drink of the month?
Well, so our drink, we've decided, is, I found an Italian Bloody Mary. It's my first Bloody Mary I've actually ever made, and I'm pretty impressed with this, actually, because it's very good.
You killed it. That's the first one? What?
That's my first Bloody Mary I've ever made. I've ordered them at restaurants. I have never made one.
Wow.
It's very good.
Yeah. No, you killed it. When you told me that you were thinking about this, I was like, that's fucking perfect. Mm-hmm. But you want to tell why you picked it?
So, obviously, we're doing our series of the Housemaids series. We're doing the entire trilogy, so get ready to hear my voice a lot. Sorry if you don't like my voice. So, we are doing an Italian Bloody Mary because our lovely, one of our lovely little main characters in the second and third book, I should say, is Enzo. And he's just a wonderful Italian man who's trying very hard to help women escape their terrible, horrible, awful husbands who beat them. So, and then of course I've modified this ever so slightly. So this original recipe calls for vegetable juice, like V8 of some sort. I decided to use Clamato juice.
I like it.
So I'm going to call this Bloody Millie.
Yes, Alexa. Yes.
Yeah, that's my choice right now. So here's what it is. It is Clamato juice, vodka, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, balsamic vinegar, freshly grated horseradish. I don't think I added enough, by the way. Basil, oregano, parsley, red chili flakes, fresh ground pepper, and garlic powder. And then our little topping, yes, it is topped with marinated mozzarella balls, basil, cherry tomatoes, and then drizzled with salt, pepper, and balsamic vinegar.
And it is so good.
It's so good. Oh. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with myself this time.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna get to my notes.
Yeah.
For our book.
All right, I'm ready.
Are we ready?
So
Because I don't think I am.
If I cough, it's because I inhaled pepper.
That's yes. I may or may not be taking a break because, I think this is 5 pages of notes on 3 books.
Welcome to my world.
I know. So, to begin, we have the original book, The Housemaid. So I remember you turned me on to this hard. And I was pretty impressed because I think every single book of Frida McFadden specifically, I've read in at most a week. It's usually been like a day or 2.
Yeah, we've been averaging 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah. I'm like, not sad about this at all.
Yeah.
So, The Housemaid. So to begin, we have Millie. She is down and out, living out of her car because she can't find a job due to her felony record. Now, at the beginning of the story, we're not told what her felony is. We're just told that she has a felony. So it's like, okay, fine. So she has a felony record or can't keep a job due to her anger issues. She is willing to do just about anything, and when she finds that what seems to be the perfect house in a rich neighborhood of New York City, she thinks, there is no way I am going to get this cleaning job. That background check is going to out me. She's applied for a job as a live-in house cleaner, nanny, helper. She meets with the lady of the house, Nina Winchester, interviews, and ends up getting the job. She's obviously shocked, but vows to do her absolute best that she can. Part of her job is living in the tiny attic in the Winchester household, which also houses Nina's daughter and her husband, Andrew. When we first meet Nina, she could be described as slightly junky, disheveled, and a little unhinged, whereas her husband is the most perfect-looking man. On the mantle, Millie notices that Nina at one point was way more put together and drop-dead gorgeous. So what happened? As her story begins, it seems that Nina becomes more and more unhinged by the day. Millie will clean things spotless, and then Nina will destroy everything and then blame it on Millie. Like, what the fuck is going on? More and more instances like this, keep happening. Oh, I gotta find my spot again. Sure, stupid technology. More and more instances like this keep happening, and as things get weirder and weirder with Nina, Millie and Andrew become closer. One night, Nina demands that Millie gets ticket to some production for her and Andrew, and then as the night approaches, Nina tells Millie, of course she cannot go. I already have plans. As Millie and Andrew have been growing closer and closer, Andrew naturally invites Millie to accompany him, and this is the first time that Millie and Andrew are intimate. Now, before all of this, the Winchester neighborhood is also being taken care of by a gardener named Enzo. He's an Italian gorgeous, non-English speaking hunk. He always seems to be hanging around the Winchester household much more than any other house on the block. At the halfway point of the book, Andrew breaks up with Nina and kicks her out of the house. Millie moves in as Andrew's mistress and thinks everything is perfect. The crazy lady is history. No more cleaning the biggest messes known to man every day. No more crazy misunderstandings about pickups for the daughter or getting yelled at for doing something Nina told her to do. Millie thinks she has it made until one night she leaves a book out on the coffee table. Her and Andrew make love in her small bedroom attic. She wakes up and her door is locked from the outside. The story then switches to Nina's perspective. We learn the story of Nina giving birth to her daughter, being a single mother trying to make it on her own, and Andrew being so good to her in the beginning. Their relationship was perfect until Nina, quote-unquote, messes up. Her first big mistake was letting her hair go too long without being dyed, so her roots were showing. No big deal, right? Like, we've all done it. Wrong. Andrew locked Nina in the attic and made her pull out her own hair, root and all, piece by piece. The first time, some of the strands were missing the roots, so she had to pull out more. Nina, of course, could not imagine that this was actually happening. Andrew had been gaslighting her into thinking she deserved it, and then that it never happened. Nina and Andrew went on living their lives because, of course, Nina doesn't have any of her own money. She can't leave, and she doesn't quite believe that it happened. At some point, Nina is hospitalized in a mental institution because Andrew staged an almost murder-suicide. He drugged Nina and almost drowned her daughter, but timed it perfectly that the police found Nina and her daughter right before the daughter drowned, and Nina had a full understanding of what was going on. When she is hospitalized, Andrew visits her with her daughter, just like the doting husband that he appears to be. When she is released, the abuse continues, along with gaslighting. Of course, no one believes her because she is obviously crazy. Nina starts to doubt everything, but tries to come up with a plan to free herself and her child. Nina one day portrays all of her feelings to the gorgeous gardener Enzo, who doesn't speak English, or so she thinks. This is when we find out that Enzo does know what's going on. He does speak English, and he begins trying to help Nina escape. This is when the plan starts to formulate. Nina intentionally hires Millie, fully believing that Millie's violent past, she will hold her own and kill Andrew, because we find out that Millie went to jail because she caught someone trying to rape her friend and she murdered him. Good for her, by the way. So Nina thinks that Millie will kill Andrew and everyone will move on. Enzo convinces Nina to go back and help Millie. When she does, we hear of how Millie got rid of Andrew, and it went something like this. Millie left out a book. Her punishment was putting 3 large encyclopedia-sized books on her abdomen and holding them there for an entire hour. She releases too early and has to redo her punishment. She is able to escape when Andrew comes into the room, and Millie is able to use a pepper spray left by Nina from a previous punishment and is able to lock Andrew in the room. She administers the same punishment to him and then some. Millie forces Andrew to pull out his own teeth with a wrench, thinking that he will then be released. Nina returns after Andrew has been locked up for days, and she finds him dead of dehydration. Nina helps cover for Millie, and Enzo helps her get away. We find out that Andrew has done this before with the policeman's daughter. It was just never able to be proven, and he has been trying to catch this guy for many years. And in true Frida McFadden fashion, there is one final twist at the end. At Andrew's funeral, we meet his mother, who we find is the one he learned his sick and twisted ways from, when she mentions his punishments he used to receive as a child, which strangely resemble the ones he used to administer. In the prologue, we follow Millie to her next job in another household cleaning. She was talking to the woman in the house with a special recommendation from Nina Winchester and a mysterious bruise on the woman's arm. Millie has turned into someone who helps battered women get away from their abusive husbands with Enzo's help by any means necessary.
Good job.
So there's book 1.
Yeah.
That is just book 1.
Yeah.
We got 3 books to go through.
Did you feel like even from the very beginning, like something was up, where you're just like, there's more to the story than you think?
Oh yeah, I just couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah.
Because it's like, something's fishy here. No one does that for just no reason. And of course she twists and turns the story in such a good way that we honestly think that Nina is batshit crazy.
Yeah.
As soon as the narrative switches, and it's like a guide to getting rid of your husband,
yes.
to getting rid of your abusive husband.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every single thing that happened in the book and why she did it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I remember reading about Nina in the first part,
mm-hmm.
being like, what the actual fuck? You can go fuck yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could feel my blood start to boil. And then that switch happened, and I was like,
oh, I understand.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's the part where I was like, oh my gosh. And then I think I, like, just couldn't stop reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had forgotten about, because, I mean, granted, we both read this a little bit earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read so many other books since then. So I had forgotten about Nina pulling out her hair. I had forgotten about Millie having to put books on her abs. And I was like,
yeah, because it was like, Nina had gone through, I think, we heard about 3 of the different punishments she had to go through. One of them was like she accidentally left the lights on one day, and she had to sit in like blinding light forever. Yeah. And I couldn't seem to quite figure it out, where I'm just like, what is going on? I'm so confused. But that it totally explains battered women. Yeah. And why they don't leave. You psychopath.
One of my dogs just came and sniffed us and said hello, and then she saw the microphone and was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. You need to not lick me, please.
Okay. Yeah, and then I was like, okay, like, that's kind of weird that Millie and Andrew slept with each other, like, that quickly, but hey, if that's what makes them happy, that's what makes them happy. Mm-hmm. And then I couldn't stand the daughter as well. I was like,
which, like, makes total sense as to why she was not trusting of anyone. Stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then all that coming together with seeing the daughter dragging that huge suitcase, like,
holy smokes, yeah.
You're made to think, well, why do you need that much clothing for a week at summer camp?
Well, and it all makes so much sense, because she was not planning, she was planning to be gone for so much longer than a week.
She wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
the most messed up part for me about the daughter was Nina saying she has a peanut allergy, Andrew saying she doesn't, and then hearing Nina say, oh yeah, no, Andrew keeps that around to keep her in line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that can kill her.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, my dogs are like, hey,
you
guys are gasping. Are you okay?
You're going to be evicted.
Oh, boy.
Like, fast.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to put the gate up. They're going to be like, oh, no! Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Good gracious. All right. We ready to move on to the second book?
Well, I think I was just shocked. Like, my final comment was when Nina walked in and saw Andrew and what Millie had done. I think that for me was like, that's I think when I texted you and I'm like, you have to read this book.
Uh-huh.
And it truly was like a very innocent thing of we were at I mentioned this last episode, we were in one of the local box stores and I just picked it up because it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
I never imagined I would have been so hooked on Frida McFadden. And I will say, like, I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, her stories aren't original, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's, like, no.
But people are trashing her real good?
Yeah, people are trashing. But I mean, an author creates their own world. They create their own story. Mm-hmm. And her stories just blow my mind, and I enjoy them. Mm-hmm. I might have bought a new book today by her.
Oopsies.
Oops.
Not sorry.
Yeah. So, all right, second one.
Okay. Now we are at The Housemaid's Secret.
Yes.
So, the second book picks up with Millie and Enzo no longer working together and no longer being together romantically for one reason or another. Mostly because Enzo had to go back to Italy for a family emergency. Millie, however, is dating someone new and is in school for social work. Like, good for her. Seriously, good for her. She does not help any more battered women because, according to her, Enzo had all the connections. She was just the foot in the door. She now wants to help people legally. She does, however, still have her past to contend with, which she can't just erase. She does continue to clean and work for anyone that will take her. This is how she starts working for the Garricks, who own the perfect penthouse in the middle of the city, but Millie never meets Mrs. Garrick. She is always mysteriously holed up in the guest bedroom and never makes an appearance. Meanwhile, Millie is struggling with her personal life and trying to decide when to tell her new boyfriend about her past, being a felon and all, while the beau, Brock, what a douchebag name too, by the way. Sorry for anyone named Brock, but I feel like Brock is just such a dickhead name, is trying to get her to move out of her shithole, unsafe apartment and into his. He likes to move fast and feels quickly. Meanwhile, at the Garrick apartment, Millie starts seeing signs of abuse. She tries to dig deeper and find out more information and becomes convinced that Mrs. Garrick is suffering abuse from Mr. Garrick. In addition, Millie is also assaulted in her stairwell by her neighbor, is almost convicted of assaulting the neighbor because she protected herself and then gave him a couple extra kicks just for good measure. But because of her violent past and her felony, the police don't believe her when she says she was assaulted first. The same perpetrator is arrested only days later with an obscene amount of drugs in his apartment. So Millie no longer has to worry about those charges or that sleazy neighbor. She also feels someone is watching her and keeps seeing a black car with a cracked headlight. We find out that this is Enzo, back from Italy! Hallelujah!
Yeah. I was like, Enzo, I missed you.
I think I had a little inkling it was probably going to be Enzo. I had a feeling that he was the one following her. Just a feeling. Thank goodness, since he is the one that planted the drug and cleared Millie's name. Millie also tries to help Mrs. Garrick escape, but she is brought back and continues to suffer the abuse at the hands of Mr. Garrick. Millie believes that she must do anything to help and finds Mr. Garrick choking his wife one day. Millie gets a gun from the apartment that she accidentally found one day and shoots Mr. Garrick in the back. Wendy Garrick tells Millie to leave and she will take care of it. Again, at the halfway point, Millie is arrested for murder, finds out that Douglas Garrick is throwing her under the bus and is finds out that Wendy Garrick is throwing her under the bus and is trying to figure out why, because Douglas Garrick is dead. Duh. As Millie is trying to piece it together, she sees the news story about the murder and realizes that she has never seen Douglas before. Yeah. The man that she has been working for is an imposter. This is when the story switches to Wendy's point of view and we start hearing her side of the story. She's a beautiful young woman trying to find her perfect rich husband that will pay for her extravagant lifestyle that she feels she deserves. She tries to turn her husband into the fit, perfect, handsome husband that she wants, but the real Douglas wants the simple life. He doesn't want the big penthouse, the extravagance, and the wealth. He wants to order pizza and live in a simple house far away from the city and merely indulges his wife. For a little while. When Wendy starts demanding more and more, he starts refusing. Wendy ends up meeting a man that is Douglas's assistant's husband that looks similar enough to Mr. Garrick, but the fit, trim, handsome version that Wendy has always wanted, and they start having a secret affair. When Douglas finds out, he threatens Wendy with a divorce, meaning she will get nothing if she is caught being unfaithful, since she signed a prenup. Mm-hmm. Now she feels she's being abused and used because she has put in her time and deserves to get the money to live the good life away from her husband. So her and her lover start planning his murder. It's a great setup. The original shot Millie fired off was a blank, and fake Douglas had fake blood. Wendy lured the real Douglas to the penthouse and killed him in cold blood, then fled to a lake house and started to celebrate with her lover the fact that she was going to be so wealthy and her partner in crime was going to leave his wife and everything would be perfect. However, Wendy did not account for a security camera that got put into the building by Douglas without her knowledge that the police found to clear Millie's name or the wrath of the wife of her lover. Millie is able to help herself clean by spilling the murder bird's location to the wife, who climbs in a window, slits her husband's throat, forces Wendy to write a murder-suicide note, and kills her. Of course, we realize that Millie had some part in the murder, but is smart enough to get away with it. The murder was obviously the slit throat, but the suicide was seen as taking an overdose of pills for a heart condition, which the real Mr. Garrick suffered from, and Millie's now ex-boyfriend, Brock, also suffered from. So when he would stay the night with Millie, she had an extra bottle of medication, just in case. This book ends with Millie and Enzo moving in together and being a happy couple in a shit apartment. I gotta say, I think this second book had the biggest twist that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And I think it was my favorite of the series. I was like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not to mention that Wendy's a fucking psycho.
Oh my gosh. Well, do you remember where that friend was when Millie was initially trying to rescue her?
Where the friend was.
Lived.
The friend? Which friend?
Remember when she drove her friend to Albany, essentially? To the train station, and then the friend was meeting them there?
Maybe.
Yeah, the friend lived in Potsdam.
Oh! That's so funny, yes. I do remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I was like, well, that's a very small town.
That's a very, very small town.
That we are familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Yep, not far right there.
Yeah. Again, it's been a while since I've read this. Mm-hmm. So your summary, I was just like, oh yeah, there's that. And then there was that. And holy shit. Oh my gosh. And
that ending was impressive, I gotta say.
I just felt so bad for the real husband.
I know.
Because he just liked the minimal life.
I love that he left everything to charity.
Yeah.
Like, he almost knew his wife was planning something.
Yeah.
And left everything to charity. Yeah. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Thank God.
And then the way that the cabin, murder went down in... It was, suspense to a T.
Yeah.
And, if I was watching a movie like that, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I would have been like, nope, nope, nope. But I could still almost imagine it in my brain. And I was like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
They go from enjoying some wine in the hot tub to they did.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't Millie who did it.
I know! Ooh. I thought that was awesome! Yeah. And it worked. The murder-suicide stage worked.
Yeah. I did get frustrated with Millie because she was a pretty terrible girlfriend. I mean,
yeah.
It was blatantly obvious that Brock just wasn't the guy for her, even though he was trying so hard. But I was like, Millie, you're not even really truly giving a shit. Just stop leading him on.
You realize that you're done. You realize you're not going to... Just move on.
Yeah.
I understand you're still so heartbroken over Enzo, but, this is not your person.
Yeah.
So move on.
Well, I also liked how she was brought in to the police department and the officer believed her and was like, let's continue working together. And I was like, it's full circle coming around where you're starting out in prison and now the police want to work with you and oh my gosh, this is great.
Yep. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a very good feeling.
I really enjoyed this one, too.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
And then I gotta say, this third book was definitely a really nice, like a blast from the past, too.
Yes.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So, on that note, let's move on to the third book. This is The Housemaid is Watching. Oh, what a journey this book took me on. I had to start off with that. We start off by fast-forwarding many years after the last book, after the second book. Millie and Enzo are married with 2 kids and are buying the house. Mm-hmm. As with the housing market now, it is next to impossible to find a house on a street that is safe, that doesn't need a ton of work, and is within your budget. And name another thing that is wrong with it. Mm-hmm. Millie and Enzo end up finding a house on Long Island in a quiet cul-de-sac with 2 other houses below market value, which is impressive by itself. Millie and Enzo also have to move their 2 kids right after spring break into a brand new school, which sucks. Mm. Ada, the 11-year-old 5th grade daughter, is a shyer child, whereas their son Nico, their 9-year-old 3rd grade son, is very outgoing and makes friends easily. And of course, the neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, immediately becomes obsessed with Enzo and his hot Italian demeanor. I mean, who wouldn't? Mm-hmm. I understand. Millie, who is now in her 40s and is still trying to conceal her past, is also self-conscious about her body. I gotta say, I feel really bad for Millie in this book because she just has a rough go of it.
Absolutely.
It sucks.
Trying to keep everything together.
Yeah. Mrs. Lowell, on the other hand, never had kids, so her body doesn't sag in the places that Millie's does now. She has the perfect haircut, perfect house, and seemingly perfect husband who gives her whatever she wants. She hands out the perfect backhanded compliments to make Millie feel like her husband wants to leave her and she's doing a bad job as a mom, which is amazing, the comments that she makes. I'm like, people say shit like that? Yeah. You are actually going to say that? That was amazing.
There's many times where I was like, you're a see you next Tuesday.
Yes, that is exactly the word I want to use to describe her. The other neighbor who keeps her child on a leash, quite literally, certainly doesn't help either with her philosophy of never ever having your child out of your sight, only allowing her child to eat all organic everything. In addition, Mrs. Lowell insists that Millie should hire her house cleaner, but Millie, having cleaned before, felt very awkward about having someone else in her house and cleaning when they are pinching pennies to begin with. Enzo is also rebuilding his lawn business so he doesn't have to travel into the city every day, and Mrs. Lowell is helping him get clients while also hiring him to do her own lawn in exchange for her help, because she's a real estate agent, so she knows everyone. Mm-hmm. Not to mention that Nico is so active and is constantly doing something. Thankfully, they are able to get him into a Little League baseball so he could burn off some energy. As he is practicing in the backyard one day, he hits a ball and breaks a window in the Lowell household. Millie negotiates for Nico to do house chores to make up for breaking their window. Not that she wants her son over there, but she cannot afford to fix the window. However, as time goes on, Nico starts to change and starts becoming sneaky and violent with his teammates. He ends up getting kicked off the baseball team for punching another kid in the stomach during a game. With all of this, Millie also figures out that she has high blood pressure, which we all know is not safe. So it could be completely understandable that if Millie was experiencing high blood pressure, Enzo would not tell her if he was helping someone escape from an abusive relationship. But that does not go well when Mr. Lowell is found dead in his house and Enzo is covered in blood. Millie calls in all of her favors with her police friend that helped her in the first book, and Cecilia, the daughter from the first book, ends up being Enzo's lawyer. This is Nina's daughter. I loved the way they wrapped that in. At this point in the book, the prosecution thinks they have a slam dunk because they found a bloody knife with Enzo's initials out on it in his drawer, and Enzo confesses to killing Mr. Lowell. Now the perspective switches to follow Ada's story and how tough it has been since they moved here. Being a brand new 5th grader in the middle of the year is difficult, and 5th graders are mean. Mm-hmm. One kid keeps asking her out, and she continues to ignore him until one day she goes to get picked up by her dad, but she goes to the wrong place and runs into the asshole kid that won't stop pestering her. He grabs her and forces her to hold his hand as she is saying no. And then Enzo runs up and scares the shit out of the kid, which is great. Uh-huh. In the car, he gives Ada the pocket knife with his initials on them and tells her to use it if she needs to. Ada also starts noticing the changes in her brother from a fun, active kid to a sullen, withdrawn kid, and she tries to help him, but he won't talk about it. Now, it has been mentioned a couple times in this book that a young boy a couple towns over disappeared and was never seen again. Now, one day, Nico comes home from the Lowells and has wet his pants, but begs Ada not to tell their parents. Eventually, he confides in Ada that Mr. Lowell has been having him come over and test out toys. On the day of the toileting incident, Mr. Lowell locked Nico in a hidden room under the stairs with his toys and a bed. Sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he threatens to tell everyone if Nico doesn't continue to come back to the house and continue toy testing. Ada goes over to confront Mr. Lowell and ends up almost getting trapped there herself. But since she still has her dad's pocket knife, she stabs him and runs away. Now, Mr. Lowell was found with a slit throat, in addition to the stab wounds, but died of blood loss from the slit throat. Mm-hmm. So Enzo didn't do it, but did Ada really go back and slit his throat? Now, Enzo has been sneaking around behind Millie's back and helping another woman escape from her abusive husband. He doesn't want to worry her, but she notices when $1,000 is missing, him being gone late, sneaking around and evading the questions Millie is asking. He's obviously telling the truth, but cannot reveal who that is for fear of tipping off the husband. We also find out that Mr. Lowell is responsible for the missing child mentioned in this book and is responsible for many other children that were abused, while Mrs. Lowell knew and just let it happen. So Millie finds Mrs. Lowell, in a hotel and gives her an ultimatum to either take the fall for her husband's murder or take the fall for the cover-up of a dead child. She opts for the first choice and goes to jail for killing her husband. Enzo is released. Ada is cleared. But who is this mysterious person that Enzo is helping? How did Mr. Lowell's throat get slit? The person was the cleaning lady for the Lowells that Millie and Enzo also hired briefly but fired after she was caught stealing. But we understand that she was trying to steal in order to get enough money to run away from her husband, so she was stealing from Millie and Enzo and the Lowells. When Ada went over to confront Mr. Lowell about Nico, the cleaning lady was also there and saw the interaction as she was stealing from the Lowells. Mr. Lowell was stabbed, Ada ran away, and Mr. Lowell caught the maid stealing. To save herself, the cleaning lady grabbed the letter opener, slit his throat, slipped out the back, not seen by anyone, never questioned, and free and clear of her abusive husband.
Whoa!
What a whirlwind that one was.
Oh my gosh.
Don't think I saw that ending coming either.
No, but I thought it was perfect because it's still the housemaid that did it.
Yup.
So is it Ada or is it Ada?
I heard Ada.
Okay.
I would say Ada would be an AIDA.
I don't know. That'll be interesting. But, yeah. So wait. That was the one part that I didn't fully understand. So were the boys being sexually abused?
I think that was the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. Where, like, there's obviously this super weird secret room under the stairs that's covered up with a bookshelf and wallpaper. And no one knows exactly what it is. Yeah. But there's a whole bunch of toys in there. And I think that's how it starts, It starts with, come over and play. You need to continue to come over. That's why there's a bed in there, so that they then get comfortable being there.
And it was Mr. Lowell that killed that other boy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because a lot of that
wasn't... And Mrs. Lowell knew it.
I knew she knew something, but some other aspects of it weren't super clear to me.
Yeah.
Which was probably the most annoying part, because I was like, were the boys being sexually assaulted? Like, that's what I don't fully understand. But thank you for clarifying that.
That was my understanding, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that Ada, and Nico got stuck. Well, they didn't get stuck. They were in their own little, hiding space in their house. In their house,
because it was like an identical one to their house. Which is like, oh, that's weird. Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah, I was like, nope.
Well, because the kids weren't stuck. Mm-hmm. They just kept going in there, and of course, and I didn't mention this because it wasn't relevant to the ending of it, but that's originally what like freaked Millie out about the house. Is she kept hearing like
noises,
almost like people being stuck in the walls
and scratching. Yeah.
Oh, it was so weird. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And. You know, it's kind of ironic that she grew up where it was like, okay, like I need to be honest and this and that with being a housemaid. But then she immediately got so suspicious of this other woman. And I really freaking hated how Mrs. Lowell was like, oh, she can come over on this date. I'm like, you're not taking other people's means into consideration. That annoyed the fuck out of me.
She's annoying. I hated her. So much. She was a god-awful garbage human.
Well, then it was hard because the other neighbor, who was like Mrs. Clean and everything, just how
she was weird.
Yeah. So weird. Like, the one friend that Nico could really have that was close to home. And that was the other thing was they went over for a play date. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go over and hang out at the house. But he was banned from that house. So it's just, oh, my gosh.
It was awful.
Yeah.
It was so sad.
But at the same time, wait. The maid... Wait. It brings it back to the original reason why Millie went to prison.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh, I totally forgot to mention that part.
Yeah.
Because that was wild. So the maid knew that Millie was helping, and that was why she was so weird, and she kept staring at her all the time because she was trying to get up the
courage to
ask for help. Okay, so I have to remember this because I don't remember specifically, but it was like her friend's daughter.
Yep. Was
the one who was being raped,
sexually assaulted.
No.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but the daughter was dating the guy that Millie killed.
Was it her daughter? I thought she worked for the family of the boy who got killed. Okay, that's what it was.
I'm pretty sure.
Many, many years ago, I think she worked for the family of the boy that got killed. And they were, of course, were like a very rich, wealthy, well-to-do, which is why Millie went to jail for as long as she did.
Yep.
Yes, I forgot about that. Because the maid knew who she was.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of what, like, having Cecilia brought in, I was like, oh my gosh, it's full circle.
Oh, God, I love that.
But knowing that connection with the original family back in the beginning, I was like,
wild.
So I will say, there's many times where a series, I'm like, okay, I'm really sad to say goodbye. This was a series that I felt like was so well-rounded, where I was okay with saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Where I felt like all was right in the world.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, Millie and Enzo and their family deserve this. I'm so happy for them.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you haven't read this book yet, which just came out last month, well, we're sorry, but you kind of know what you asked for by listening to this.
I was about to say, we give spoilers.
Yep. No, I thoroughly enjoyed the series for sure. I'm really glad that she wrote a third to just wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good.
Good
job.
Thank you.
Those were really good rundowns.
I was about to say, that was a lot, but it's okay.
It's a lot for what you're used to, but, like, you can't just cover one when it's a series of 3 that each have their own twists and turns.
I agree. Completely.
Oh, so
good. Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready for some true crime?
Yes. Very much so.
So I'm kind of going back on what I said in episode 1, and episode 1 was I was saying, like, my aim is to try to cover cases that aren't as well known. But I definitely think I'm also gravitating towards I really like covering cases that can correlate to the book that we're covering.
I do like that.
So I think I might gravitate towards that a little bit. I mean, hell, I can do whatever I want. It's my podcast. I mean, if I can do an element where a case isn't as well covered, sure.
Yes.
But I think that's a fun theme for me. Plus, it narrows down what type of crime and how it went down. So either way, we're going to go back in time.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So this crime has been covered quite a few times. But to be honest with you, like, it didn't really stick out in my brain. And obviously after this research. So a big reason why I chose this was because when you search for housemaid crimes, it's always like, the housemaid stole this and they did that. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. That's not what Millie was about. No.
Right.
So today, and I might mispronounce this because I wrote this a while ago and whatever, I'll be covering the case of the Papin sisters.
Okay.
Papin. They're French. That's why I'm like, pronunciations.
Mm-hmm.
They're known as the sisters who brutally murdered 2 members of the family that they were working for.
Ooh.
So, this is a throwback case that takes place in France in the early 1900s.
Okay.
And for doing research, I re-listened to an earlier episode of And That's Why We Drink, My Favorite Murder. I read a recommended article from Crime Magazine. The article was written by Jessica Mason. I also read articles from All That's Interesting, The New York Times, and Murderpedia.
Cool.
I also want to mention that during my research there was conflicting information, so I'm going to just relay all of it to cover my bases.
Done.
So, Christine and Leah Pepin were the middle and youngest of 3 sisters. Christine was born in 1905, Leah was born in 1911, and growing up, which you might guess since they committed the crime, life was rough.
Mm-hmm.
Their dad, Gustave, was an abusive alcoholic, and their mother, Clemence, was said to be disturbed. Disturbed, flighty, and promiscuous, which is usually not a problem if you're single, but she just was not a good woman in general. She was also not happy to be a mom, as she was forced to marry Gustave when she became pregnant with the oldest daughter, who I haven't mentioned quite yet.
Right.
I will. So, I mean, you can kind of get that. She was forced to be a mom and wife when she wasn't ready for it.
Yep.
So she gave birth to her oldest daughter, Emilia, Emilia. So during Emilia and Christine's childhoods, they actually lived with Gustave's sister.
Okay.
When Leah was born, the mom, so the youngest, the mom found out that Gustave had been sexually assaulting Emilia, and she divorced him. Now, keep in mind, Clemence is not the mother of the year. So it's said that Clemence divorced Gustave because she felt as though Emilia had seduced him.
Of course.
Guess how old Emilia was at the time of their divorce?
5?
10.
Ah! Yes, obviously a 10-year-old is seducing her father.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep. So the divorce was a way of punishing Gustave for his infidelity. And after the discovery of the affair, Clemence sent Emilia and Christine to a strict Catholic orphanage and sent Leah to live with a great-uncle. And after living at the orphanage for a while, Emilia actually decided to become a nun. And that's where her portion of her involvement in the story ends. But I felt like it was important to mention, like, these girls did not have the greatest childhood. Christine had also obviously been at the orphanage and was about to go down the exact same track as Emilia, but her mother forbid her.
Of course.
Yet again, her mother is not the mother of the year because the girl's incomes went straight to her. And she didn't want to lose that money. So as soon as Emilia became a nun, that income got cut off. She was like, Christine, no, you can't become a nun. I want your money. So with being a nun no longer in the cards, Christine, 15 years old at the time, became a housemaid. And during this time, this is when she was taught how to clean, how to mend, how to cook, and was actually pretty good at it, which, yay. Within the first few years of her career, she did actually work quite a few jobs, but she was forced to quit because her mom's like, this job isn't paying you enough. You need to leave.
Oh.
And then, of course, when Leah got older, she followed into Christine's footsteps. And the two did remain separated, but they did attempt to work together whenever they could, which I can understand that. In 1926, at 22 years old, Christine moved into the home of Renee, Leonie, and Genevieve Lancelon. Woo! Pronunciations in French when you've already had a Bloody Mary. Woo!
We're doing great.
So Renee and Leonie were the parents, and Genevieve was their 27-year-old daughter. So a couple months after Christine had started working for them, Leah moved in as well. So yeah, the sisters are together. So Christine was the cook for the family, and Leah was the chambermaid, and they were working 12 to 14-hour work days. So they were up at 7 a.m. every morning. They were cooking, cleaning, and then they'd go to the market as needed for, cooking. And then once a week, they got half a day off so they could attend church. And then during their free time, rather than other maids in the area, they would actually be holed up in their room, and this is, like, part of what made me, like, say, I have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what floor of the house their room was in?
Were they in the attic?
They're in the 3rd floor.
Of course they were. Of course they were.
So it was sad that they could go out, do whatever they wanted to, but at the same time, if the family needed them, they had to be there.
Uh-huh.
So that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually the time when I personally think that the two started to trauma bond. And with this being true crime, it was definitely to the extreme.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
According to the Crime Magazine article, the sisters would also visit a neighborhood medium. So they'd spend time at church, they'd be in their room, and then they'd go to a medium. And this was what was really weird. At one point, Christine stated that she thought she was her sister's husband in another life.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, what?
So you also got the crazy genes.
Oh, yep. This idea likely came from this medium, but it's also not a proven fact.
Mm.
But it's just weird. Other than the church and this medium, the two never went to the movies or to dance halls.
Mm-hmm.
They never had suitors or friendships with other maids in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, just the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, despite this reclusive life, other families actually got jealous because of how busy the two were while their maids were busy in the community socializing.
Mm-hmm.
However, not all the community members thought things were as great as they appeared to be. Shopkeepers found the sisters to be odd and standoffish, socially awkward, essentially. And one of their employers had a personality, well, one of the previous employers Christine had a massive personality issue with Christine.
Mm-hmm.
She had employed her for 15 days.
Oh.
Yeah. And then during that time frame, thought she was extremely touchy and so haughty and rebellious that she hesitated to actually ask Christine to do anything.
Oh.
Yeah. But the family that they ended up with, both of them ended up with, had a decent relationship with the sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Leonie, again, the wife, clearly wore the pants when it came to communicating with them because she's the only one who really did. In the 7 years that the sisters worked in the home, neither of them spoke to the husband, Rene. Neither of them. Leonie hadn't been much better, though, as far as communication, because it was only through written directions. Yeah, I'm like, interesting.
Oh, okay.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things on paper, their living situation was actually pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
So they had meals provided for them, and they had a heated room, which in today's standards is like, well, why wouldn't you have a heated room? But back then,
that was a luxury.
Yeah.
Not a necessity.
Yeah. So they had the heated room, they had meals provided, and they're also paid at $2,000 a year, which during that time was a standard wage. So they're getting paid a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
When Leonie the wife discovered that the girls were sending their wages to their mother, she insisted that they stop and keep their earnings for themselves.
Interesting.
Which I was like, oh, that's nice. And then she even told their mom the news. And after this, the girls started calling her Mama amongst themselves. And their mom was that woman. So you can clearly kind of see who was there for them, but who wasn't.
They definitely had some, like, trauma stuff going on then. If they're now referring to
their boss
as Mama and their mother as the other woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But despite all of this, Leonie wasn't the kindest either. So she was said to be demanding, as she liked her home to be pristine.
Mm-hmm.
She would often do white glove testing to see how well the girls dusted, and pinched Leah when she'd missed a scrap of paper on the floor. And then this was a moment where I was like, oh boy, this is foreshadowing. Leah apparently had made a comment to Christine that Leonie had better not do that again or she'd defend herself. I'm like, oh boy.
Here we go.
Okay, this is the crime day. February 2nd, 1933. The women of the house, so the wife, mother, and daughter, left the house for the day, leaving the sisters home alone. An errand that Leah was supposed to run was to fix an iron. So, for ironing the clothes.
Yep.
And then upon returning, she plugged it in, and a fuse blew.
Oh.
So, obviously, it broke the iron again, cutting off the electric in the home. And this is key. Knowing that the family wasn't set to come home until really late, the girls decided to address the electric in the morning.
Okay.
That evening, Rene, the father, was waiting for his wife and daughter waiting for them to arrive at dinner. And it wasn't clear if they were supposed to meet at a restaurant or at a family member's house. I was seeing both. But that's the big detail, is they were not supposed to be home for dinner. They were not supposed to be home at all. When they never showed for dinner, the mom and daughter, he left and went home looking for them.
Okay.
When he arrived, the doors to the home were locked on the inside, leaving him unable to enter. After looking around, he noticed the light of a candle upstairs, but no other light. So he was like, okay, this is weird.
Mm-hmm.
He quickly went to the police station, and a couple officers helped him gain entry by climbing the back wall and breaking down the door. Now, the story where he was at the family's house, it was like the brother-in-law came over, and then they got the police. But either way, police did eventually come over, climbed the back wall. The house was silent and quiet, and they immediately thought that there was a prowler around. They're like, okay, like, we're on guard, which, that's kind of what happens. Sense. Using their flashlights to investigate, they worked their way up the stairs leading to the second floor. You have a toothpick in your mouth from the drink, and you might want to keep that in a safe place.
It's now out.
It's not pretty. One of the officers sees what they think is a white marble on the stairs, and they bend down to pick it up.
It's an eyeball, isn't it?
Yep.
Yucky!
Yep.
That's yucky!
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Oh, it gets so much worse.
I believe it.
Sorry.
Continue, please.
There's a reason why this story stands out in history. Let's just say that. Yep.
Continue.
On the second floor landing, the mother and daughter were found dead, missing their eyeballs. Mm-hmm. Both had been beaten beyond recognition.
Wonderful.
Teeth and bone were found on the floor. They were able to find the mother's eyeballs, which were tucked into the scarf around her neck. Yeah.
That's yucky.
Yeah. Police continue working their way through the house, thinking that the murderer is still in there. So in the bathroom, they see an iron and a wrinkled shirt on an ironing board, leading them to think that the maid was startled during the attack. At this point, they're thinking the maids in the house might have been attacked as well.
Mm-hmm. Reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. Upon clearing the house, they went downstairs to let their sergeant in, sending for the superintendent and examining. So they also allowed the examining magistrate in the corner to come in and just take a look. Mm-hmm. Nope, that was wrong. They let the sergeant in, and they sent for the superintendent, the examining magistrate, and the coroner. Okay. There we go. The police proceeded to the third floor to continue searching the house, where they found the maids to be locked from the inside. They then called in a locksmith, listening at the door to see if they can hear the murder inside of the girls, because they're like, what's going on? Are they okay? Mm-hmm. Upon opening the door, the sisters were found in bed, calmly laying by one another, just in their robes.
Oh.
One of them said, "We were expecting you."
Ah.
Now, I want to point out another detail that came up at this time. It was rumored that the girls weren't just sisters, but they were involved in a sexual relationship as well.
Yeah. That's yucky. That's incest. That's yucky. Yeah. Ew.
So at one point, and this was like part of what led to that, they were found in bed together, nude. But anyway, going back to their discovery of them there, a bloody hammer was on a stool next to the bed.
Wonderful.
And this is when Christine responded with, "They wanted to hit me. I'd rather do my masters in than let them do us in."
Okay.
That's when the police accused them of murdering the mother and daughter, and Leah said, "They shouldn't have threatened us."
Oh.
This is when questioning was focused on Leah because she seemed to be more fragile, but Christine quickly gave her a look to shut her up and tells the police that Leah is deaf and dumb. Yeah. So you can kind of tell who's in charge.
Who's in charge, yep.
And needless to say, the two girls were then taken away. Mm-hmm. And I will admit I wrote this a while ago, so
Oh, no.
I'm on this ride with you because I remember a lot of this. But
no.
This is my story. So take a drink and buckle up because
my drink is done.
Because while we know most of what happened to Andrew and the housemaid, I'm going to tell you what happened in this true story.
Okay.
That night, the two women of the house returned unexpectedly. Now, this is where I've gotten the conflicting information. Mm-hmm. Christine allegedly approached Leonie, the mother, telling her what happened, which is like the iron, electricity, all of that. The mother flew into a rage, and in self-defense, Christine reached forward and tore the mother's eyes out with her fingers.
Oh.
The other account I heard was that Christine grabbed a pewter jug and bashed Leonie over the head with it. And do you know what a pewter jug is?
I think so, but explain.
It's a heavy-duty water jug, which back in the early 1900s isn't exactly plastic. It's a heavy...
Right, okay.
Heavy.
Yep.
So then the daughter came in to see what was going on, and Christine then yelled that she was going to massacre them.
Oh!
Yeah. And upon hearing the commotion, Leah came in, and Christine told her to smash Genevieve's head into the ground and tear her eyes out.
Yummy!
Yeah. So Leah did just so.
Oh! Yep, Mm-hmm.
So to refer back to the sisters' intimate relationship, a theory as to why the eyes were pulled out was that Leonie had apparently caught the sisters having sex one day. So that's the theory about why the eyeballs. Blech. Yeah. So then, while the two women were still alive, on their knees, holding their faces, the girls decided to go and get murder weapons. They found a knife and a hammer and beat the two women, trading weapons back and forth until the women were dead.
Wow.
Upon their death, Christine decided to prepare the bodies, quote, as one would rabbits for cooking. Yep.
Nope.
Being the cook of the house, she apparently had a cookbook that had a recipe to do just that. Do you remember me texting you saying you're gonna fucking hate me?
Yes.
Yeah. They lifted the dead women's skirts over their heads, lowered their underwear, and took knives and chiseled and stabbed through their butts and thighs. Yeah. So here's where it's kind of gross, and it kind of reminds me of, like, the Manson clan with blood and all that shit. So the daughter was apparently on her period, so they took blood from that and rubbed it over her mother. They then they cleaned up the mess and got ready for bed. And just to clarify, the cookbook was never actually used, so that's just what she claimed to have said. I want to mention an important detail, though. From the very beginning, the scene had been compromised. Mm-hmm. Police had been working through it. Locksmith had gone through, and the photographer as well. So it's just contaminated up the wazoo. Mm-hmm. During this time, the women's underwear had been pulled up, and their dresses had been pulled down. And as gruesome as this to see, it just means that the crime scene photos aren't accurate whatsoever.
Right.
Christine did all the talking to the police, expressing no remorse, but claiming self-defense. The cops knew that the story wasn't completely accurate because Leah said the exact same thing as Christine, showing their story had been rehearsed. Needless to say, this case was a big deal. However, French citizens were actually divided on what the fate of the sisters should be. Some thought they should be killed, some tried to defend them due to the conditions they were in. Then some tried to rationalize where their minds were, aka snapping. After being in prison for 5 months, Christine admits that it was her idea to murder their women. Leah was only doing her bidding. During the trial, Christine didn't make eye contact with anyone, and Leah just seemed vacant. They were only there to protect one another. And their lawyers tried to plead insanity, but that didn't work, and they were both convicted of the crime. So Christine was sentenced to death by guillotine on the 30th September in 1933, and upon getting this information, she fell to her knees. Wow, she actually has some feelings.
Or she just saw her impending doom.
Yeah. However, when it came to Leah, she was sentenced to 20 years of hard labor and 10 years of exile. The court felt like she had been under the influence of Christine.
Sure.
As more and more time went by in her holding cell, Christine started to get violent hallucinations, and she started to refuse to eat or drink, and then went into a depressive state. She wanted to see her sister. Like, that's all she kept saying. At one point, she even tried clawing her own eyeballs out, and that got her put into a straitjacket.
Fair.
However, the warden at one point did relent and told her that she could see Leah. And this is gross, but at this time, Christine behaved in a sexually inappropriate way towards Leah. She kept trying to unbutton her clothes, saying, "Say yes." Instances like this sparked the idea that they might have been having an incestuous relationship. So it's definitely keeping that going. In January of 1934, Christine was resentenced to a life term of hard labor, but after a few years, she was sent to an insane asylum. She was there for a few months before she passed away from cachexia.
What's that?
So I just want to make sure I'm saying that right. I think it's cachexia. This is where one refuses to eat or drink and essentially just wastes away.
Oh.
She believed that she deserved to die the way the jury found her to be guilty of. So cachexia was her way of taking her life.
Okay.
When she was brought the paperwork to say she was being sentenced to 20 years hard labor and not death, she actually refused to sign it.
Wow.
Leah was even brought in at one point, and Christine continued to sit in silence, refusing to even acknowledge her sister. And she eventually passes away at the age of 32.
So Christine was guillotined.
Well, she was originally sentenced to that, and then her sentence was changed over.
Oh.
So she was eventually sent to the insane asylum, where she passed away because she refused to eat and drink and do anything.
So Christine was the one who basically starved herself. And Leah, we're going to find out?
Yes.
Okay.
Leah was released from prison early after serving 8 of her 10 years, and she was 31 at the time. She went to live with her mother and got a job as a hotel maid using an alias name, which I can understand that.
Yep.
And it's conflicted as far as when she did pass away, because a lot of people think she passed away sooner, but someone claimed to have found her in like a nursing home setting where she passed away in 2001.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was quite old.
She lived to be an old lady.
Yes. Yep.
Good for her.
That's what a lot of people are claiming, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
So, a lot of this mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Professionals believe that the sisters had shared psychosis or shared madness, otherwise known as folie à deux. The symptoms are shared paranoid psychosis, including hearing voices, a sense of persecution, and a capability for inciting violence in perceived self-defense against imagined threats, as well as inappropriate expressions of sexuality.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Those afflicted with this will focus on a mother figure as their prosecutor. So it would be Mama or Leonie. What can happen is one half of the pair will dominate the other.
Yep.
And this can be hard to diagnose because they can appear sane, which can lead to the insanity defense not working.
Makes sense.
So that's the story of Christine and Leah Pepin.
Wow.
Yeah, and like that's the biggest thing was what the fuck. And like that's why I felt like it was very important to say they had trauma left and right in their childhood.
Yep. The fact they still had the death by guillotine in the early 1930s. I don't think I realized that was still around just so late on. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Like, they were just twisted.
Yeah.
But I was
Twisted sisters.
Yeah, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the definition of that.
Yes.
So that was I felt like that was very fitting for the Housemaids series, to be honest with you.
It was. Thank you. Thank you for that one. That was wonderful. That was amazing. I'm so happy I heard that.
You're like, now I need to go scrub my brain.
I need another drink. Shit. Fuck. Well, this next book for next month is a little bit lighter. Just a little bit. But this is also one that's been around for forever, and I've just never actually read it.
Yeah.
This is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak.
And you had actually brought this up during a campfire chat, and if you haven't listened to that, that's our mini series that we're doing for the summers. or we just talk about books. There's no true crime related to that, and you've been raving about it, so...
It's one of those books that I became, like, instantly obsessed with, just because of the point of view it was written from. Which I was like, that's so original and interesting and cool. So, here's our little synopsis. It is 1939. Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier and will become busier still. Liesel Meminger finds her life changed when she unearths a single object from the snow. It is the Gravedigger's Handbook, left there by accident at her brother's funeral, and it is her first act of book thievery. But these are dangerous times. When Liesel's foster family hides a Jewish man in their basement, Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. In superbly crafted prose that burns with intensity, award-winning author Marcus Zusak has given us one of the most enduring stories of our time. And I gotta agree with that last part because it's so, like, I can't wait to talk about this book. It's just like little place in my heart lives with this book.
I did read that back, I think, I want to say in middle school, but it's been so long that I'm going to reread it for sure. I'm very, very excited for sure. But cool. Well, where can they find... Oh, please make sure that if you like what we are coming out with and you want to show us support and that we don't suck, please subscribe to our YouTube channels and to our Spotify channel, or one, doesn't matter. But where can they find us?
We have a gram. We have a TikTok. So Gram, you can find us at Books, Booze, Murder. Our TikTok, you can find us at Books, Booze, Murder Pod. We are on YouTube at Books, Booze, Murder, and Spotify at Books, Booze, Murder.
Yep. And until next time, bye-bye.
Toodles!